From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we talk about the 71 different lake captains that lived in Bayview during the age of sail and steam between 1878 and 1968. Now today, I'm talking to you from in front of the former home of William Braeger. And interestingly enough, his cousin, Charles Braeger, lives right behind him up the hill on Wentworth Avenue, and I'm speaking to you on Delaware Avenue, where William had his home. And this is it. Now, William Braeger was a fisherman on Jones Island. He was born on Jones Island. He spent most of his life as a fisherman on Jones Island. And as many of you may know, right about the time of the First World War, a little bit earlier actually, in 1913 for him, he and his family were forced off of Jones Island, and so they bought this house. He worked for just a little bit, a year, during the transition at the rolling mill, and then he went back to fishing from this house, where he lived for 30 years. He owned and captained 5 different fishing boats over this time, in partnership with his cousin Charles, who will be the focus of a future episode. If I didn't do him first when it comes time to publish it. Don't know. But William, in addition to captaining these ships and owning these fishing boats, which, by the way, the International Shipmasters Association considers fishermen lake captains. So just a technicality to convey there. So when he wasn't captaining these fishing boats, William was also simultaneously managing the Braeger family fishing business. They had a fishing store right up in the KK River north of the Bayview border on First Street, just this side of First Street. And then what they would do is take their fishing boats out, catch their fish, bring it back through the harbor, through the KK River, dock at the fish store, and offload it right there where it was available, retail, wholesale, etc. So he did that for the whole time, probably a little bit later in the, after the turn of the century, right in there, he took over the Braeger family business. He's a third generation fisherman from the Braeger family. Substantial fishing history on Jones Island and continued here in Bayview. Now, when he retired in about, I think it was in the late 1930s, he moved up to Grand Marais, Michigan, which is a port in the northern peninsula in Michigan, bordering Lake Superior, known as a safe harbor for sailors over the years that were sailing in Lake Superior. One more thing he did, and this is absolutely heroic. If you want to know what the definition of a hero is, I will now tell you. This is my definition, but I don't think anybody can ever say that it's not so. A friend of William Braeger's, George True, on Jones Island, drowned, and he left behind a wife and I think it's 2 children. Now this is Jones Island. People don't have a lot of money back then, folks. So what did William Braeger do? William Braeger married Bertha True, George's widowed wife, and took on those 2 children as his own and raised them as his own. So that's a hero. That's a hero. And William Braeger qualifies. One thing about fishermen too, Jones Island and Bayview, they went out year-round onto the lakes. Can you imagine being in a small fishing boat out on Lake Michigan in the middle of January? And they did it every single day for decades. They were tough guys, let me tell you, tough. I mean, even the bigger ships had to stay in port because the insurance companies wouldn't cover them when the ice was covered in lake, when the lakes were covered in ice. But parts of the lake, especially closer to shore, weren't always that way. And one more thing that's of interest, Bayview's fishermen didn't just sail out a little bit off the shore and cast their nets. No. The prime fishing ground for Bayview's fishermen and Jones Island's fishermen was 20 miles out into the lake in a little boat in January. They have my respect. Okay, that's all I have for today. Simon Stanhope now is going to fill you in all the details. There's a lot of details. Very, very interesting. William Braeger, tremendous fisherman in Bayview. With that, hats off to Bayview's lake captains, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Welcome to another installment of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we discuss the lives of the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in the age of sail and steam. This discussion will include their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes. Here is the map of lake captains' homes in Bayview, to show you where this episode takes place. Its location focuses primarily on the large green arrow. Today we will be discussing the life of Captain William F. Braeger, who was born in Wisconsin and was the third-generation fisherman of the Braeger family of Jones Island. He was also one of only two from that famous fishing family confirmed to have been a Bayview Lake captain. He had three brothers, all but one of whom followed their father into the fishing profession. William Braeger spent most of his life, over 3 decades, as a fisherman on Jones Island, not moving to Bayview until later in life, where he continued as a fisherman and became a Bayview Lake captain. He heroically married a woman with 2 young daughters, after her husband, likely a Jones Island fisherman, had died. Over his life, William Braeger captained 5 different fishing boats. His uncle, Frank Braeger, was the founder of the Braeger Fishing Company and fish store located just north of Bayview on the Kinnickinnic River. When Frank retired to live with his son Charles, also a fisherman and Bayview Lake captain, William took over the running of the business with cousin Charles's assistance. Ultimately, it was William who closed out the Braeger family's 3 generations of Jones Island and Bayview fishermen when he retired in 1942. He left Bayview to live out his days in a coastal town along the southern shore of Lake Superior. Captain William F. Braeger was a third-generation fisherman of the Braeger family, who started out on Jones Island in the late 19th century, and then moved to Bayview 3 decades later. He was born in Wisconsin, possibly on Jones Island, on 8th March 1878. His grandparents, Ferdinand and Amelia, immigrated from Germany in 1866 and settled on Jones Island. It was Ferdinand that began the Braeger family's lifetime occupation as fishermen. Ferdinand and Amelia had 2 sons, Frank and Fred, making them the second generation of Braeger fishermen on Jones Island. They then, in turn, passed the torch of fishing on to their sons, which included William as one of Fred's 4 sons, William, Alfred, Arthur, and Carl. Only Arthur didn't go into fishing, and only William can be confirmed today as becoming a Bayview Lake captain. William lived on Jones Island for 34 years, until 1912, working as a fisherman since age 12, and captaining several fishing boats. Some of these were powered only by sail. He is confirmed to have captained 3, reported to have captained 5, and may have captained all of the Braeger family's 8 different fishing boats, though this is not confirmed. In 1913, William Braeger moved his wife Bertha and their young family off Jones Island after 34 years and into Bayview at 3020 South Delaware Avenue. The process of eviction of Jones Islanders had just begun, and William Braeger was one of the first victims. Oddly, upon this move, and only for 1913, he worked as a, quote, moulder, unquote, likely for the Illinois Steel Company, that had wanted him and others evicted. However, this new and undoubtedly temporary occupation for William didn't last long, and the next year, 1914, he returned to being a fishing boat captain. It's probable that that one year, 1913, was a transition as William got settled into Bayview, and all that that move entailed. So, while he was getting the family moved, he stopped fishing until things stabilized. He was to remain a fishing boat captain and Bayview Lake captain, living at 3020 South Delaware Avenue through at least 1940 and probably 1941, aged 63, making his total time living in Bayview at 28 years. He is documented as having captained at least 3 fishing boats, of which he owned 2, during these years, 1914 to 1940, and probably also 1941. The Liberty, 1913 to 19, 1925 to 45. The Grace, 1925 to 29. And the Frank Braeger, at least in 1931, when his cousin Charles was the owner. Note, William was technically captain of 2 boats simultaneously, the Liberty and the Grace, but because he owned both of them, he probably alternated and used others as captains, though those names are not known. He also simultaneously managed, from at least 1924 to at least 1929, the Braeger family wholesale fish store, initially started by his uncle Frank, now renamed William Braeger and Company, adjoining the Kinnickinnic River at 2013 South 1st Street. The Braeger fish tugs would sail in from Lake Michigan with their catch at the end of each day and tie up to the Kinnickinnic River dock at the base of the market to drop off their newly caught fish. Perhaps most significant, William accomplished this, 51 years as a fisherman and managing the wholesale family fish market, with just a 6th grade education. Then again, this was not unusual, as it was the norm for all of Bayview's 71 lake captains. In 1942, William Braeger, at age 64, left Bayview for unknown reasons and moved to Grand Marais, Michigan, a harbour town on Lake Superior, about an hour-and-a-half drive west of the locks at Sault Ste. Marie that connect Lake Superior with Lake Huron. He may have taken another fishing job there, though that is unknown. His employer's name is, quote, W.E. Hill, unquote, but it's unknown if that was a maritime-related company. Grand Marais was known by sailors for years as a port of safety, since it was one of the few places along the southern coast of Lake Superior that ships could seek refuge from storms. William became a hero when he married wife Bertha, who had been born in Germany, in 1904, while still living on Jones Island. Bertha's husband, George True, died of unknown causes in 1900, leaving Bertha alone with their 2 daughters, Emma and Lillian. William married Bertha, who went by the nickname of Dora, and took on the responsibility of caring for her 2 girls. Then William and Bertha had 2 more daughters, Crystal and Grace. Daughter Grace and her father William were to share a similar life-endangering event over 20 years apart. Grace was hit by a Milwaukee streetcar in August 1916 and dragged about 10 feet while walking with her mother, but escaped major injury. 9 years later, William ordered his custom-built fish tug to be named Grace. 14 years after this, in 1939, William would share this life-endangering event with Grace when he was hit by a truck at age 66 at the corner of 12th and Wells Street. He suffered a concussion and was taken to the hospital, where he recovered. During his time on Jones Island, William sang in the town chorus with several other Jones Island fishermen, including future fellow Bayview Lake Captain Charles Tesler and his brothers August and Albert. When his father Fred got older, William brought him in to live with him and his family at 3020 South Delaware Avenue, starting in 1922 through at least 1930 until Fred died in 1935 at age 82. While Fred had been a lake captain, he never lived in Bayview while a captain. William Braeger was very active in a leadership role in the fishing community, as was his cousin and fellow Bayview Lake Captain Charles Braeger, advocating for various and many issues over the years affecting Wisconsin fishermen and their families as president and director of the Wisconsin Federation of Commercial Fishermen. These issues included seeking legislation to protect fishermen during disputes with state officials over the size of mesh in their nets, as well as other issues, such as those associated with hatcheries. William was also vice president of the Milwaukee Commercial Fishermen's Association. He and his cousin Charles were mentioned over the years in several newspaper articles that included photos of each of them serving in these roles. In 1931, William was featured in a full-page newspaper article that involved a reporter going out onto the lake with William, who was captain, and his crew aboard the fish tug Frank Braeger. The article provided great details of the hard work involved in fishing Lake Michigan, including that William had been captain of 5 different fishing boats during his then 44-year, which would ultimately become a 51-year, career fishing Lake Michigan. On 11th November 1940, Bertha Dora Braeger died, aged 68. Her death was just a year after William had been hit by that truck. Captain William F. Braeger continued on for 9 more years, dying at age 71 in 1949 at Grand Marais, Michigan, living ashore inside its historic harbour of refuge for sailors. Safety and rest at last for Bayview's and Jones Island's great old fisherman and lake captain, and the last of the proud Braeger fishing family tradition. He and Dora are buried, together with Bertha's first husband, George True, at Pilgrim's Rest Cemetery in Milwaukee. Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history. We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. If you'd like to read more details about Captain William F. Braeger, as well as the sources for the information contained in today's video, you can find these and more in the book Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, for sale now, by individual volumes on both Amazon.com and HenschelHouseBooks.com. All proceeds from book sales go to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's lake captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to contribute to support these projects, to include this and other markers honouring Bayview's lake captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider contributing to us through the listings found on our website under the Contribute button. Note, we are not a 501c3, so contributions are not tax-deductible. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. This is the only surviving intact ship that was once captained by a Bayview Lake captain, and in its case was captained by at least 2, and likely 3, totaling over 20 years between them. Finally, we also have free self-guided walking tours of Bayview's 71 lake captains' homes, using only your phone. It's simple and easy. Just go to our website shown here, find the item on the menu bar at the upper left named Free Self-Guided Walking Tours, and then scroll down to find the map with instructions. Zoom in by street. When you find a captain's house you're interested in, click on it and details appear on the right, along with a link to the YouTube episode from this channel that provides the biography of the captain that lived there. You can also read about his sailing adventures while living in that particular house by going to the website menu item, Sailing Adventures. These are also included on our website blog. It's free, fun, and available anytime you're out walking. Just bring along your phone. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.